I almost walked past him because the city teaches you how to look away. But when he said my name, softly, like he was afraid it might break, I felt years collapse into that single sound. I didn't know then that what he was about to confess would undo me more gently than love ever had. I had gone out early that morning, chasing errands I didn't want to think about, the city still half asleep around me. Winter hung low in the air, turning breath into something visible and fragile. I hadn't thought about my ex in years, not carefully, not honestly. But seeing him there, worn thin by time and weather, pulled open a part of my past I thought had already healed. The city teaches you how to look away. Not all at once, not cruelly. It teaches you slowly, through repetition, through mornings that feel the same, through faces you pass every day without learning their names. It teaches you that if you don't meet a stranger's eyes, you don't have to carry them with you. That morning, the city was quiet in the way it gets just before it remembers itself. The sky hadn't chosen a color yet. It hovered somewhere between gray and pale blue, stretched thin like it had been awake too long. The air smelled faintly of wet pavement and old leaves, and every breath felt like it belonged to someone else before it reached me. I stood near the bus station holding a paper cup of coffee I didn't want. Steam lifted from it in short, tired spirals, disappearing before it ever reached my face. The lid was loose. I pressed it down, then realized my hands were shaking. I told myself it was the cold. The benches along the sidewalk were damp from the night before. Rain, maybe. Or melted frost. Cardboard lay folded beneath one of them, creased in the careful shape of something that had tried to be a bed. A blanket, thin, gray, frayed at the edges, had been tucked beneath the bench as if someone planned to come back for it. That was when I saw him. At first, he didn't register as a person from my life. Just another man sitting too still, too folded into himself. His shoulders curved inward, protecting something invisible. His coat was buttoned wrong, one button missed, another straining. The fabric looked tired. Not dirty, just worn thin by time. I shifted my weight. I could still walk away. I had already started to. Then he looked up. Not quickly, not with hope, just enough. And something in his face reached into me before memory caught up. It wasn't his eyes exactly. It was the way he held them back. Like he'd learned not to use more than necessary. Like he was careful with what little was left. My chest tightened before my mind could name him. Years rearranged themselves slowly. Like furniture moved out of a house you thought you knew. It was him. My ex. The word felt wrong in my mouth now. Too clean. Too simple for what stood in front of me. Time had not been kind to him. It had pressed down instead of passing through. The sharpness I remembered in his jaw had softened, sagged. His hair had thinned and gone gray at the temples in a way that felt unfairly early. His beard was uneven, more shadow than shape. But his eyes, they were the same. He didn't smile when he saw me. He didn't look surprised either. "Hey," he said. My name followed. Softly. Carefully. Like he wasn't sure it still belonged to him. The city did not pause. A bus hissed as it pulled in. Doors folded open and shut. Someone laughed too loudly nearby. Shoes scraped against pavement. A delivery truck idled at the curb, rattling slightly like it was impatient with everything. I stood there longer than was polite. Longer than felt safe. I started, then stopped. He nodded once, as if finishing the sentence for me. "I didn't think you'd expect this," he said. He didn't say me that he didn't say here. I sat down on the far end of the bench. I left space between us. Not out of fear. Out of respect for everything that had once lived there. The bench was cold through my coat. Damp. It creaked slightly under my weight, like it remembered other bodies. Other nights. We didn't talk right away. The city filled the silence for us. Wind tugged at a receipt caught in a storm drain. A pigeon landed too close, cocked its head, then hopped away again. Somewhere nearby, a man coughed, a deep, hollow sound that carried. I noticed his hands then. They were rougher than I remembered. Knuckles thickened. Nails uneven, bitten or broken short. One finger bent slightly wrong, never healed straight. His hands rested together, fingers interlaced, as if he didn't trust them to stay still on their own. "You don't look surprised," I said. It wasn't the right sentence, but it was the only one I had. He smiled faintly. "I am," he said. "Just tired of showing it." That answer landed heavier than anything else he could have said. I watched his breath fog the air, then disappear. Watched how his shoulders rose and fell like each breath required thought. "I can get you something," I said. "Coffee. Food. Something warm." I said it carefully. Not like an offer that demanded gratitude. Not like charity. He shook his head gently. I'm okay. We both knew that wasn't true. But we also both knew that truth isn't always the point. I took a sip of my coffee. It had gone bitter. Cold. I didn't plan this, he said after a while. I didn't answer. Before you ask, he added. I wasn't going to, I said. He exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding that breath for longer than this conversation. When things started slipping, he said, staring at the pavement, I kept telling myself it was temporary. The word sat between us. Temporary. First it was the job, he continued. Then the place. Then the phone. His shoe nudged at a crack in the sidewalk, tracing it without really seeing it. Each time, I thought I'd fix it before it mattered, he said. Before anyone noticed. I thought of all the times I'd waited for him to fix things. Promises stacked neatly, never kept long enough to be useful. Temporary things settle in, he said quietly. If you don't stop them. Snow began to fall. Not dramatically, just a few flakes drifting down undecided. They melted when they hit the ground, darkening the concrete in soft, uneven dots. I watched one land on his sleeve and disappear. Why didn't you call me? I asked. The question surprised both of us. He didn't look up. Because you would have answered, he said. That hurt more than if he'd said he wouldn't. I didn't want to be that voice, he continued, still staring at the ground. The one that drags you back into a life you already survived. Something inside me shifted then. Not anger, not guilt. Recognition. I wasn't good to you, he said. Not apologizing. Just stating it. I know that now. The bus station grew louder behind us. Another bus arrived. Someone shouted a name. Someone else argued quietly into a phone. And still, the bench held us. I didn't know how to carry my failures, he said. So I handed them to you instead. That sentence sat heavy. It wasn't dramatic, .it wasn't rehearsed. It was honest. Snow fell more steadily now, softening the edges of everything. The world felt muted, like someone had turned the volume down without asking. I stood up slowly. I can't fix this, I said. I know, he replied immediately. I didn't come here for that. I reached into my bag and pulled out the only cash I had. I hesitated, not because of the money, but because of what it meant. Then I placed it beside him on the bench. For food, I said. And a coat, if you can find one. He didn't thank me right away. He looked at the money, then at me. His eyes were clearer than before. Take care of yourself, he said. I am, I replied. And for the first time in a long while, I meant it. I walked away before either of us could say more. Behind me, the bench creaked softly as he shifted. Ahead of me, the street opened into morning, busy, indifferent, full of people who didn't know what had just been laid to rest. I didn't look back, but the silence between us followed me. Not heavy, just unfinished. I told myself I wouldn't go back. That the city had already given me the answer I didn't know I'd been asking for. That some meetings are meant to stay singular, contained, quiet, complete in their own way. I told myself the bench near the station was just a place. That the man who sat there belonged to a past I'd already folded away. The city didn't argue with me. It just kept moving. 2 mornings passed. Then a third. Each one looked the same from a distance. Light thinning the dark, traffic warming itself awake, people walking with purpose even when they didn't know where they were going. I went about my days with the careful efficiency I'd learned years ago. Groceries. Emails. The long, ordinary list of things that make a life look settled from the outside. But the space between things had changed. I noticed it in the quiet moments. In the way my hand paused on a door handle. In the way my phone stayed heavier in my pocket than it should have. In the way silence lingered a beat longer after the radio clicked off. On the 4th morning, I found myself walking toward the station again. I didn't dress differently. I didn't plan what I would say. I didn't even acknowledge, fully, where my feet were taking me. I let the city do what it does best, carry me forward without asking too many questions. The sky was lower that day. Clouds pressed down like they had something to say, but weren't ready to say it. The air smelled like wet metal and early rain. I saw the bench before I saw him. The blanket was folded more neatly this time, tucked beneath the seat as if someone had taken care to leave it that way. The cardboard had been replaced, cleaner, thicker. Someone had learned what worked. He was there, sitting the same way, hands folded, shoulders curved inward. A coat I recognized hung off him now, mine. The sleeves were too long. The collar swallowed his neck. He looked up when he felt me near. Not startled, just aware. You came back, he said. It wasn't a question. So did you, I replied. He smiled faintly. The smile didn't ask for anything. I sat beside him. This time, I didn't leave space. The bench felt warmer than I expected. Or maybe I was. We watched the street together. Cars passed in slow waves. A woman jogged by, her breath sharp and steady. Someone dragged a suitcase over uneven pavement, the wheels protesting. I was going to return the coat, he said. If you came back. And if I hadn't? He shrugged. Then it would have kept me warm anyway. I nodded. That answer felt like something else, but I didn't reach for it. We didn't speak for a while. The city filled in the gaps again, but it felt different now, less intrusive. Like it knew when to stay quiet. I noticed the small changes first. His posture was straighter. Just slightly. His hands rested more openly on his knees, palms down, as if he trusted the ground beneath him a little more. His beard had been trimmed. Not carefully, but intentionally. Did you sleep? I asked. A little, he said. Enough. I didn't ask where. He glanced at me, then back at the street. You look steadier. I am, I said. Most days. He nodded. That's good. The words landed softly, without envy. I kept thinking about what you said, he added after a moment. Which part? All of it, he said. Then, quieter. The part where you didn't promise anything. I didn't respond. The truth didn't need defense. A bus pulled in. Doors opened. People stepped on and off, carrying bags and conversations that weren't ours. When the bus left, the air felt thinner. I don't expect you to stay, he said. I know how this looks. How does it look? I asked. He considered that. Like I'm still asking, he said. Even when I say I'm not. That honesty startled me more than anything else he'd said so far. I don't want to be someone you feel responsible for, he continued. I was already that once. I studied his face. The lines around his eyes had deepened, but they weren't bitter. They looked earned. I came back because I wanted to, I said. Not because I owe you anything. I know, he replied. And for the first time, I believed him. Rain began to fall lightly. Not enough to send people running. Just enough to soften edges and darken concrete. Someone nearby shook out an umbrella. Someone else pulled a hood tighter. We stayed where we were. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notebook. The cover was bent, the pages softened from use. He didn't open it right away. Just held it there, like a thought he wasn't sure he was allowed to share. I write things down now, he said. What kind of things? Things I don't want to forget, he replied. And things I don't trust myself to remember correctly. He finally opened the notebook. The pages were filled with small, careful handwriting. Dates. Places. Names crossed out and rewritten. I used to lose track of time, he said. Days would fold into each other. I'd wake up and not know what day it was. And now I write it down, he said. So it doesn't disappear. He closed the notebook and slipped it back into his pocket. I felt something tighten in my chest, not pity. Recognition. I had my own ways of keeping things from disappearing. Do you ever wish you could go back? He asked suddenly. The question surprised me. To what? I asked. He shook his head. I don't know. Just back. I thought about that. About the version of myself who had believed in patience as a cure. About the version of him who had believed in time as a shield. No, I said. I don't. He nodded slowly. Me neither. Rain tapped softly against the bench. The streetlights flickered on, one by one, though it was still early. The world prepared itself for evening. I didn't tell you everything the other day, he said. I didn't ask what he'd left out. There are parts one don't know how to say yet, he continued. Parts that don't sound right when I hear them out loud. I waited. I just wanted you to know, he said, that seeing you didn't make things harder. That felt important. It made them clearer. We sat with that. When the rain grew heavier, I stood. I should go, I said. He nodded. Of course. I hesitated, then reached into my bag and pulled out a sandwich I'd packed and forgotten about. For later, I said. He took it carefully, like something fragile. Thank you, he said. Not as a reflex. As a choice. I took a step away, then stopped. I might pass through here again, I said. I don't know when. He met my eyes. There was no expectation there. No reaching. I'll be here, he said. Either way. I walked off as the rain thickened, my shoes splashing lightly against the pavement. Behind me, the bench creaked once as he shifted. Ahead of me, the station lights blurred into soft halos. The space between us didn't close that day. But it changed. And I knew, quietly, without knowing why, that the parts he hadn't said yet were already moving closer. By the time I saw him again, the weather had changed its mind. Winter was no longer trying to be gentle. The air carried weight now. Snow didn't drift, it settled. It stayed where it landed, pressing the world into quieter shapes. The city felt slower under it, like it had agreed to move carefully for a while. I didn't go looking for him. That's what I told myself. But my route curved the way it always had, and the station appeared ahead of me like something remembered rather than chosen. The bench was already there, darkened by meltwater, familiar in a way I hadn't expected. He wasn't sitting this time. For a moment my chest tightened, an uninvited fear, sharp and quick. Then I saw him standing near the wall, his back to me, adjusting the strap of a worn backpack. The coat I'd given him was zipped all the way up. The sleeves were still too long, but he'd folded them once, neat and deliberate. He turned when he sensed me. "You're late," he said. I checked my watch without thinking, then realized he didn't mean time. "I didn't know we had an arrangement," I replied. He smiled faintly. "Neither did I." We sat down together. The bench creaked in the same familiar way, like it was learning us. For a while we talked about small things. The snow. How loud the city gets when it's covered in white. How people walk differently when they're afraid of slipping. Ordinary observations. Safe ones. Then he reached into his backpack. "I brought something," he said. He didn't hand it to me right away. Just rested it on his knee. It was a folded envelope. Old. The edges softened. The paper yellowed like it had been exposed to too much light and too much waiting. "You don't have to read it," he said quickly. I waited. "I found it a few weeks ago," he continued. "In a storage locker I forgot I still had." The word forgot sat there, heavier than it should have. "What is it?" I asked. He turned the envelope over in his hands. The name on the front had faded, but I could still make it out. His name. In my handwriting. "I never opened it," he said. That surprised me. "You gave it to me the day you left," he added. I told myself I'd read it later. When things settled, I remembered that letter. How long it had taken me to write it. How carefully I'd chosen each word so it wouldn't sound like blame or mercy. Just truth. "And did things ever settle?" I asked. He shook his head. "They kept moving," he said. So I kept waiting. He held the envelope out to me. "I think it's yours now," he said. I didn't take it. Not yet. Instead, I watched his face. The way his jaw tightened slightly, like he was bracing for something he hadn't named. "You don't have to tell me everything," I said. "You know that." "I know," he replied. "But I want to tell you something." That was different. He leaned back against the wall, his breath fogging the air in front of him. "I didn't lose everything at once," he said. "That's not how it happened." I stayed quiet. "The first thing I lost was time," he continued. "Not hours. Not days. Time the way it holds you in place." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "When the job started slipping, I worked longer," he said. "Told myself effort would fix it. When the bills piled up, I stopped sleeping. When people started noticing, I stopped answering. I could see it. The pattern. The slow narrowing of a life. I didn't wake up one day homeless," he said. "I woke up one day invisible." The word echoed. "I'd walk into places and feel like I wasn't fully there," he continued. Like the world had decided it didn't need to acknowledge me anymore. Snow slid off the edge of the station roof, hitting the ground with a soft thud. "I started forgetting dates," he said. "Then faces. Then reasons." He looked at his hands again. The roughness. The scars I hadn't noticed before. "I lost my phone," he said. "Not the device. The numbers. I couldn't remember who to call." I felt something tighten in my throat. "Not because I didn't care," he added quickly. "Because everything in my head felt crowded." He tapped his temple lightly. "Too many failures fighting for space." I nodded. Slowly. "I lost my apartment when I missed the third notice," he said. I told myself I'd talk to them the next day. There was always a next day. And then there wasn't, he said. He didn't dramatize it. Didn't linger. He let the facts speak and then stepped back from them, as if they were no longer his alone. "I slept in my car for a while," he said. "Until it got towed. That was new." I didn't interrupt. "I told myself I was still choosing," he said. "That I could turn things around whenever I wanted." His laugh came out wrong. Short. Quiet. "The truth is," he said, "I was already too tired to choose." The city shifted around us. A couple passed by, laughing softly, sharing a pair of gloves. A man dragged a sled piled with scrap metal across the street. Life continuing. I didn't tell you any of this because I didn't want to be a story you felt sorry for, he said. I wanted to be someone you remembered as finished. That landed hard. I wasn't finished, he added. I just didn't know how to begin again. Silence stretched between us, not uncomfortable. Just full. After a while, I reached for the envelope. The paper felt fragile in my hands. You still don't have to read it, he said. I know, I replied. I turned it over once. Twice. I think you should, I said. He nodded. Later. We sat there longer than we meant to. The cold crept into my bones, but I didn't move. Not yet. I don't know why I'm telling you this now, he said finally. I looked at him. Yes, you do, I said gently. He met my eyes. Held them. Because you're the last person who saw me before I disappeared, he said. The weight of that settled slowly. I needed someone to know, he continued. Before I try to be known again. That was the closest he'd come to hope. When I stood to leave, my legs felt stiff, like they'd been holding more than my weight. I don't regret leaving, I said. I wouldn't want you to, he replied. I tucked the envelope into my bag. I'll keep it safe, I said. He nodded. As I walked away, I felt the past trailing behind me, not pulling, not begging, just waiting. And I knew then that the hardest part of his story hadn't been told yet. Not the loss. The moment he realized no one was looking for him. The day he finally said it, the city was loud enough to hide us. Traffic pressed in from every direction. Horns layered over one another, impatient and constant. Somewhere nearby, construction rattled metal against metal, the sound echoing through the station like it was trying to break something open. People moved quickly, shoulders forward, eyes fixed on destinations that weren't this bench. We blended into the noise. That felt intentional. He was already there when I arrived, sitting with his back against the wall, legs stretched out in front of him this time. The backpack rested at his feet, zipped shut, its shape more familiar now. He looked steadier than before. Not better, just more present. You came, he said. So did you, I replied. He smiled. A real one this time. Small but honest. I sat beside him, close enough that our coats brushed when we shifted. He didn't move away. For a while, we watched the city together. A man argued into his phone. A woman dropped a glove and didn't notice. Someone laughed too hard at something that probably wasn't funny. The world kept announcing itself. I read the letter, he said suddenly. I didn't look at him. When? I asked. Last night, he replied. After you left. I felt my chest tighten, not fear exactly. Anticipation. You didn't have to, I said. I know, he replied. But I needed to. Silence settled between us again, heavier this time. The kind that knows it's holding something important. It took me a while to get through it, he said. Not because it was long. I waited. Because it was accurate, he continued. That hurt more than I expected. I kept stopping, he said. Telling myself you couldn't have meant it that way. That you were angry. Or tired. Or trying to make it easier on yourself. He turned his head toward me then. You weren't, he said. You were just done pretending. I nodded once. I didn't know how to respond back then, he continued. So I didn't. That was true. He hadn't. I used to think silence was neutral, he said. Now I know it does just as much damage. A bus roared past, close enough to shake the bench. When it was gone, the quiet felt exposed. There's something I didn't tell you, he said. I didn't ask what. I've been circling it, he added. Trying to find a version that doesn't sound worse when I hear it out loud. I folded my hands in my lap. The cold pressed through my coat, sharp and steady. Say it the way it is, I said softly. He nodded. I didn't leave because I was overwhelmed, he said. I left because I was ashamed. The word landed between us, heavy and exact. I didn't know how to be the person you thought I was, he continued. And instead of admitting that, I let you believe I just needed more time. I remembered all the time I had given him. The patience I'd mistaken for loyalty. I thought if I waited long enough, he said, you'd stop expecting anything. That was the confession. Not betrayal. Not anger. Avoidance. I wasn't cruel, he said quietly. I was careful with myself. His hands clenched once, then relaxed. I watched you get smaller around me, he continued. Watched you adjust your life, so I wouldn't have to face mine. I closed my eyes briefly. I didn't stop you, he said, because part of me liked that I could disappear without consequences. The city noise seemed to fade then, like someone had turned the volume down. I told myself you were strong, he said. That you'd be fine. That you didn't need me to show up. His voice didn't shake. That was how I justified it. I looked at him then. Really looked. You didn't break me, I said. But you taught me what absence feels like. He nodded slowly. I know. I didn't know how to fix myself, he said. So I stayed unfinished. That sentence stayed with me. I thought losing you would be the punishment, he continued. I didn't realize it was the warning. A man nearby dropped something metal. It clattered loudly, then was scooped up again. Life intruded, then moved on. I'm not telling you this because I want forgiveness, he said. Or because I think it changes anything. Then why tell me? I asked. He met my eyes. Because I finally know what I did, he said. And I needed you to know I see it now. Something inside me loosened. Not relief. Not closure. Recognition. I used to replay our last conversations, he continued, trying to find the moment where everything went wrong. And, I asked. There wasn't one, he said. There were dozens. Quiet ones. The kind that don't announce themselves. I nodded. That felt true. I don't expect you to carry this with me, he said. I just didn't want it to stay unspoken. The bench creaked as he shifted closer, not touching me, but near enough to feel his presence. I don't hate you, I said. I wouldn't deserve it if you did, he replied. I thought about that. I don't forgive you either, I added. He nodded. I wouldn't ask for that. The honesty between us felt fragile. Real. Snow began to fall again, lighter this time. Almost tentative. It settled on his shoulders, melting slowly into the fabric of the coat. I don't know what happens next, he said. I do, I replied. He looked at me. This is where we stop, I said. Not because there's nothing left to say, but because there's nothing left for me to hold. He swallowed. That's fair. We sat there for a long time after that. Not talking. Just letting the confession exist without trying to reshape it. When I finally stood, my legs felt steady. I'm glad you told me, I said. So am I, he replied. I took a step away, then paused. For what it's worth, I added. I didn't disappear because of you. I left because I learned how not to disappear. He smiled. Not with regret. With understanding. I walked away as the snow thickened, my footsteps leaving marks that would be gone by morning. Behind me, the city swallowed him again. But the truth didn't vanish with him. It stayed. Quiet. Unavoidable. The last time I saw him, the city looked ordinary again. Not softened by snow. Not sharpened by rain. Just itself, busy, loud, uninterested in how close something had come to breaking open on one of its benches. I hadn't planned to see him that day. I told myself the conversation we'd had was enough. That whatever needed to be said had already found its way into the air between us. Truth doesn't need repetition. It needs space. Still, my feet carried me back to the station one final time. The bench was empty when I arrived. For a moment, that felt like relief. I stood there longer than I meant to, my hands tucked into my coat pockets, watching people pass. A man with headphones nodded along to music only he could hear. A woman balanced a coffee and a phone, nearly dropping both. Someone laughed at a joke I didn't catch. Life continuing. Then I saw him. Not on the bench this time, but standing near the edge of the sidewalk, backpack slung over one shoulder. He looked different. Straighter. More awake. The coat was still mine, but it no longer swallowed him the way it had before. He noticed me at the same time I noticed him. You're leaving, I said. It wasn't a question. He nodded. For a while. Where? I asked. He shrugged. Not far. Not close either. That answer felt intentional. We stood facing each other, the space between us filled with everything we'd already said. There was no rush now. No anticipation of another confession. The air felt settled, like something that had finally found its place. I didn't know if you'd come back, he said. I didn't know if I should, I replied. He smiled slightly. That sounds right. I noticed the small things then. His boots newer. Not new, but cared for. The backpack zipped properly. The notebook tucked into the side pocket, worn but protected. You look different, I said. So do you, he replied. That felt true. I found a place that lets me stay a few nights at a time, he said. Not permanent, but steady. That matters, I said. He nodded. It does. We fell quiet again. Not the heavy quiet from before. This one felt earned. I won't keep showing up here, he said. I don't want to turn this into something it isn't. I appreciated that. I didn't come to save you, I said. You know that. I do, he replied. And I didn't ask you to. We both stood there, listening to the city breathe around us. I used to think closure was loud, he said after a while. Some big moment where everything made sense. And now? I asked. Now I think it's just knowing where to stop, he said. I nodded. That's something I had to learn too, I said. He looked at me then, not with longing, not with regret. With respect. I'm glad you walked away when you did, he said. Even when I wasn't. That landed softly. Honestly, I didn't do it to teach you anything, I said. I did it because I was disappearing. I know, he replied. I see that now. We stood like that for a moment longer. No touching. No reaching. Then he adjusted the strap of his backpack. I should go, he said. So should I replied. He hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out the folded envelope. The letter. I don't need this anymore, he said. I know what it says now. He held it out to me. I shook my head gently. You keep it. He studied me for a moment, then nodded and slipped it back into his bag. Thank you, he said. For what? I asked. For not turning away when you could have, he replied. I considered that. Thank you, I said, for finally telling the truth. He smiled, not sadly, not hopefully. Just quietly. We didn't hug. We didn't promise anything. We didn't exchange numbers or plans or reasons to meet again. We simply stepped in opposite directions. I walked away first. Not because I had to. Because I was ready. The pavement stretched ahead of me, familiar and unremarkable. The city wrapped itself around my steps, absorbing me back into its rhythm. I felt lighter, not because he was okay, but because I no longer felt responsible for his becoming. Behind me, I didn't hear him move. I didn't turn around. That felt important. Later that evening, I stood by my window and watched the street below. Cars passed. Lights flickered on and off. Somewhere, someone was beginning a story that had nothing to do with mine. I thought about the version of myself who had once mistaken patience for love. About the woman who had learned slowly and painfully that staying isn't always loyalty, and leaving isn't always abandonment. Some truths don't arrive to repair anything. They arrive to release you. I went to bed that night without replaying the past, without wondering what he was doing or where he was sleeping, without carrying his weight into my dreams. The silence felt clean, final, and for the first time in a long while, I knew the difference between remembering someone and holding them. The city outside kept moving, and so did I.